The Atlantic Series is featured in a long list of Canadians winning at home, from Gilles Villeneuve conquering Trois-Rivières in 1976 to his son Jacques victorious on Île Notre-Dame in Montreal. Today, Canada's best young talent looks for victory in BC. David Rutledge and Michael Valiante were born and raised in the province. Jonathan Macri, Stéphane Sirois, all looking for victory on the streets of Vancouver. Beautiful Vancouver, the Atlantic cars return to the streets of British Columbia for the first time since 1999, and an important race for a number of people involved. First and foremost, Hoover Orsi, who sits on the pole. A victory today would probably secure the championship. He's got a 15-point bulge on Canadian David Rutledge. Rutledge obviously facing the pressure of hometown fans and media to secure a victory on his home track. It should be fun to watch.
Yeah, this pressure really is just, it's more enormous than it's possible to talk about, because he is under pressure from fans, pressure from sponsors, and his own self-induced pressure. I mean, right now, he's been outdriven. He wants to get that back. He's already been anointed the next coming of Greg Moore, and here's the situation he is facing as we look at 3 more races to go in the year. William Langhorne was the winner here, his only victory in the Atlantics in '99, but look at all the Canadians that have succeeded on the streets of Vancouver, and perhaps that bodes well for David Rutledge. As we get set for race number 10 of the Toyota Atlantic Series, a look at this track, not an easy one to pass on, Bill. No, it's not. I think that's perhaps the biggest challenge today for David Rutledge. To start on the pole like Hoover Orsi is, look what faces anybody behind him. There really are very few good passing spots. To make a pass, you're at risk almost any place. And of course, when you make the risk and you gamble wrong, your race is done. We're on board with Martin Basso. He'll give us an idea of what the track is like. Yeah, and something to keep in mind as we watch this. Look how difficult it is to get around this place. Now look, try and pick out spots where you think you might be able to pass, and then suddenly there's a wall in your way. Also listen to the throttle. Now we're on one of the longer straight sections. Just watch up ahead. Look how seemingly it's like a tunnel. You really can't see around these corners. This is the fastest place in the track, right down here. And this is maybe one of the best spots for passing. Right up at the end of the straight. Extremely heavy braking right here. Now maybe dive down the inside, but again, look what happens if you mess it up. You're up into the tires on the outside and you hit a curb on the inside. Very difficult. Blind through here, this right-hander. Double, long right. Just feed power on very gently and squeeze right up the walls. It is a tremendously challenging track. Out to this wall, drop a couple more gears. Now you have to feed power in so gently too. Keep in mind, these roadways are all crowned. They are designed to let rain run off, just like every single city street is. So that tends to throw the cars out wider at every opportunity. This is the kind of track that takes a great physical toll on a driver as well, isn't it? It does, because there really is no time to rest. Taking a look at the starting grid for today's race, Hoover Orsi, who has dominated the season so far, sits on pole, but the man who challenged him in Cleveland, right beside him, Joey Hand. As we look at David Rutledge, you talk about the fact that this is a difficult track to pass on. It will be tough for him just to get in front of those top 2. It is going to be very, very hard, and something that he has to do right now is to be patient. I mean, all of the drivers have to be patient. Remember that the difficulties with these tires, when they're cold, they don't have much grip. That, combined with the tricky nature of this track, oh boy, it just sets up such a challenge. Tony Ave, who won earlier this year, way back on row number 6, as we look at some of the rest of the competitors, these will be the back markers once the top guys get around the track. As mentioned, David Rutledge is the hometown guy. A lot of pressure on him to win this race. Let's get a report from Brian Till.
Well, David Rutledge has won 2 out of the 3 Canadian events so far this season. He needs to make it 3 out of 4 if he wants to stay in this championship battle. Now, being a Vancouver native, the press has not only picked him as a favorite here today, but as a favorite to be one of the next great Canadian drivers. He's got a long uphill battle to stay in this championship, but he may have seen a ray of sunshine yesterday when Hoover Orsi in qualifying made a very uncharacteristic mistake and hit the wall. Now, they were able to repair the car and get it back into the session for this morning's warm-up. The car seems to be okay, but the question is, where is Hoover's mental state? Is he thinking too much championship? He needs to concentrate to stay in it and make sure that he can win the championship. Has Rutledge found a chink in his armor? We're going to have to wait and find out.
So it seems as if David Rutledge is facing a mistake by Hoover Orsi if he has a chance of winning this race.
It certainly would help. There's no question about that. And I have talked all season long how different drivers respond differently to pressure. This is such an enormous weight on David's shoulders, but also on Hoover Orsi. He knows that if he dominates, if he wins, if he gets that spread in points, he could be a champion. But he can't make a mistake.
Orsi takes the field down to the green flag and leads into corner one. Oh, David Rutledge lighting them up into that first turn.
And very heads-up driving back in the pack. We saw somebody come down there, had the wheels all locked up. Tons of smoke pouring off. Everybody paid attention. I think all of the cars got through without any contact at all. That's almost a miracle on a street circuit.
Joey Hand settles into second place. Rutledge right behind him as they file through these very tight turns in Vancouver. It looks like T.J. Bell and his teammate Rocky Moran Jr. may have had some contact there.
A little bit of a spread, too, going back through there. You can see that the lead cars. There's a move right there.
Oh, Michael Valiante sneaking by Rutledge in the third.
That's a bit of a shock. Now, I don't believe that David was even expecting a pass at that point. Wisely, he didn't try and turn into the corner. He has to bide his time. Sometimes this is one of the most difficult things for a young driver to do, is to exercise patience. You see, and there's a pit stop already by T.J. Bell. Now, that's got to be a problem. Maybe there was contact on turn one.
Probably some damage to that car. We talk about Valiante. He's also a British Columbia native. He's also a teammate of Rutledge's.
Yeah, and what better way to make a statement than if David Rutledge is getting all this press and all of the accolades, for him to suddenly come out and run ahead of him, that opens up a lot of eyes.
So the lead is held by Orsi. Joey Hand sits behind him. There's Jonathan Macri, who's had a good season, sitting sixth. The paper says David Rutledge is the next one. Is that fair?
Well, I think it's really talking about the hopes and dreams of definitely everybody in British Columbia, perhaps all of Canada, in that we all miss Greg Moore so much. David has shown such promise that it is very exciting, but awfully tough on him.
And at this point, he sits in fourth position, just behind Michael Valiante. Let's get a report from Brian Till.
Well, so tremendous disappointment, not only on the part of Rocky Moran and T.J. Bell, but the entire Price Cobb team. Both cars in. Can't tell if they had damage with each other, but Bell has damage to the front of his car, and the left rear of Rocky Moran's is damaged. Bell out of his car, walking dejectedly back to the pits. They're out of this, and they're not getting back in.
Boy, two teammates gone within 2 laps at the start of this race. I wonder if the guys in Lynx are paying attention to that.
Well, you know what? This is the kind of thing that absolutely drives a team manager to go crazy. How do you get both of your cars battling and damaging each other?
Quite a start to this race. We'll return with the action when we come back. Welcome back to Vancouver, race number 10 of the Toyota Atlantic Championship. 2 Canadians in the top 4. This is the battle for 5th position. Martin Basso leads Jonathan Macri. We are now back to the leaders. In the silver car, Hoover Orsi, who sat on pole and can clinch the championship with a victory and some help from David Rutledge. There's Rutledge in the number 19 car. He sits in 4th, just behind another BC native by the name of Michael Valiante. So at this point, the field has really settled in comfortably.
Yeah, and I think if I am either Valiante or David Rutledge, I have to hope that Joey Hand suddenly gets that inspiration like he had at Cleveland and gets up alongside Orsi to slow him down, to occupy his mirrors, do whatever, but take the lead position away. If Orsi is allowed to run cleanly, if he doesn't have to devote his concentration to another vehicle, he probably will continue to lead and run off with this race. They have to pressure him. Now here's a replay of the start. We're just going to go back here and just watch this coming down at turn 1. Particularly, watch back in the middle of the pack. This huge burst of smoke right there. You just see cars getting sideways, but what a great job of avoiding an incident. All of those drivers really first rate.
Brian Till's in the pits. He's going to give us an update on the situation involving the Lynx team. That's Rutledge and Valiante.
Well, Steve Cameron is the team manager for Lynx, and Steve, I know it's early in the race, but it's late in the season and late in the championship battle. Valiente in front of Rutledge. When do you do something about that, or do you?
Well, Dave's car takes a little longer to get up the heat on the tires, so if he closes back up on Michael, then I guess we'll make that decision. If Michael's holding him up, then I'm sure we'll let him go by.
And that would make sense because there is a factor here, and that is the championship. Rutledge still has an outside chance at taking that title, but he'll need some help.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, for a young driver like Valiente, he would certainly be disappointed, but again, he realizes that he is very much on a learning curve, and you have to go through this position that with David Rutledge being the senior member of the team. Sounds like so funny saying a senior member, this young boy, but he's the senior member. You have to do this to help him win the championship. It's all about the final score. It's not about who's getting a point right now.
Hoover Orsi hoping to make the point right now as he leads this race, but look at back in the field. There's Jonathan Macri, who has moved up into 5th position ahead of Martin Basso, so now Canadians run 3, 4, and 5.
And that right there, that's Stefan Roy, Lavin, and Riley. They're all having a great battle back there, too, for 7th place.
We've seen a lot of this year where a lot of the good fighting for position goes on in the back of the field.
Oh, yeah, very much so. And I think a lot of it, some of the teams aren't blessed with huge budgets, so they don't get maybe as much testing as other teams would. And that's where it really depends on the natural instincts of a team manager. This looks like a good pass coming here. He got a great slingshot. Yeah,
Lavin
wonderful.
moves inside on Waugh and takes position number 7.
And look at Riley.
Oh, follows up and does exactly the same thing. In a matter of seconds, Waugh loses 2 places.
That really was just beautifully done. He watched very carefully, took advantage of that big hole being punched through the air, 2 cars drafting, and he was able to go through another clean pass. Excellent job.
Now, Rodolfo Lavin was in this race 2 years ago, so he's got some experience on this track, and I guess from the tight corners and the aspects of this circuit, it's very important to know what it's like.
You know, as much as anything, too, I think it's a comfort level running around the walls, that if you run at a track like Moseport or in Montreal at the Grand Prix track, there are wide corners, lots of room to run off, but you can see here, the slightest error, you hit the wall, and that takes a lot to get used to.
Up at the front of the pack is that man, Hoover Orsi. Let's go to Brian Till. He's down with Orsi's team.
Well, Kyle Brannon is Hoover Orsi's engineer. And Kyle, you and I had a long conversation in Toronto about how good Hoover is and how level his head is and everything else. Yet yesterday we saw a very uncharacteristic mistake. You work well with him and so closely with him. Where is his head this morning?
I'm sorry?
Where's Hoover's head this morning? We saw an uncharacteristic mistake yesterday.
Yeah, he's really good. I mean, it was such a small mistake. It resulted in a big crash, but it really didn't affect his attitude at all. He just keeps getting better and better and more confident. No problem.
Well, they say no problem down here. They believe in their driver, and you got to be impressed with a guy who qualifies on the pole, crashes the car, and shakes it off and goes out and is now leading the race.
And a good thing for Hoover Orsi, too, because there are a lot of people watching him at this point, those being kart teams that may want to hire him for next year.
I think it's a very valid point that this still is very much the school where the graduates move on to the champ cars. These are drivers who are getting good experience with ground effect vehicles, just tremendously sophisticated little race cars. They're very fast, and they're perfect vehicles for training the next generation of champ car drivers. Carpentier and Tagliani, 2 good examples. They got terrific experience running the players' cars through this series. They moved up, and once their schooling has been going through this process of refining, you see what they are doing right now. They're extremely fast drivers.
And the list of Formula Atlantic Championships is a long one. And the winners, very good ones. Gilles Villeneuve, a 3-time winner of this series. His brother Jacques has won. Michael Andretti was a winner back in 1983. So when you win an Atlantic Championship, chances are you will succeed in a higher level.
Yeah, there are a lot of people pay attention to this, and particularly for Hoover right now. He has had such a good... There's an idea. Just look right here in the foreground. You see a lot of people are watching, and a lot of them very, very important kart personnel once again. So for Hoover to come off this dominating year like he's had, he has won just about every place and has made very few mistakes. The one in practice was a real rare one yesterday.
You may see last year's champion, Buddy Rice, in kart next year. There are rumblings that he may join Team Rahal. As for Hoover Orsi, word is Mo Nunn may be interested because Alex Zanardi may be leaving the team.
Well, and unlike, I think, Max Pappas, who we may see driving a taxi next year. Now, there's a guy who just didn't make it.
Hoover Orsi dominating this event so far, though Joey Hand is right behind him and refuses to give an inch. Let's get a word from his team. Here's Brian Till once again.
Well, I'm here with Mark Armstrong, who is Joey Hand's engineer. Now, Mark, you guys aren't battling for the championship, but there is another championship that you're looking for, and that's Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, we only got 1 point to Macri right now, and it's pretty close. We're in front of him right now in the race, too, so hopefully we can finish it out way in front of him, like one spot better.
They're still looking for a big trophy down here. It may not be the championship, but they'll take Rookie of the Year and head into next season.
And that looks like a foregone conclusion. Hand has been sensational this year. In fact, if you have been following us over the course of the year, as we look at Jonathan Macri suddenly with a problem.
Yeah, he has pulled off. That's actually in one of the runoff areas, so that's some sort of a mechanical failure. You can see he just virtually has coasted in. Tracks like this are very hard, notoriously hard on gearboxes and axles. You're trying to put a lot of power down and get a lot of wheel spin off the corners. Any sort of little hopping, like any wheel hop, you can snap an axle or a constant velocity joint so quickly. That looks like that's maybe what happened here.
And Macri was one of those battling for the Rookie of the Year honors. Here is the battle for third. Once again, teammates from Lynx. It's Valiante leading David Rutledge. Rutledge in the number 19 car.
Now, Steve Cameron did allude to the fact that it does take a little more time for Rutledge's car to come in, for his tires to come up, for the fuel load to burn off, for the right way they've got it set up. Right now, it looks like his car is getting quicker. He is definitely closing on Valiante, closing very fast. And they really have not lost touch with first or second. They're only a couple of seconds ahead of them, so that's a good sign.
Valiante doesn't want to give an inch to David Rutledge because, like Rutledge, he's performing in front of a hometown crowd. Now the leaders are starting to come up on the back markers.
And this could be very interesting, too, because if the leader or if anybody gets blocked at the wrong place, you're going to see gaps suddenly disappear or develop very, very quickly.
Joey Hand right on the tail of Hoover Orsi at this point. They had a fabulous battle in Cleveland earlier this year. There's Valiante making a move on a back marker. And Rutledge sneaking up behind as well.
Oh, boy, he came so close there before he ducked out of that slipstream.
So the positions remain the same. Let's get a word from Brian Till on Macri's situation. Brian?
Well, Bill Fickling, the team owner for Macri, now you guys have to be so impressed with this young Canadian. What a great job battling for Rookie of the Year. Did he say anything on the radio of what put him out today?
Yeah, apparently it's something in the drivetrain. We don't know if it was a CV or an axle or whatever, but what a shame. He had the NTN car run really good. It was quick in the warm-up. Just got by Martin, and we were looking forward to, chasing down the leaders and staying this rookie hunt now. Now it's going to be pretty tough with 2 races to go, but he did a good job.
Well, they thought they got the monkey off their back at Road America with a podium finish for Jonathan, but it looks like the bad luck is back.
And Jonathan Macri battling, as mentioned, Joey Hand for the Rookie of the Year honors. Hand really, really working it in second position on Hoover Orsi right now.
Yeah, Hand really gets so close in some areas, and I don't know where Orsi's able to draw away a little bit, but it looks like in the tight section, Hand is even quicker.
That final lap in Cleveland when Hand and Orsi exchanged the lead twice may have been one of the best laps of racing you will ever see.
I would agree. I think that plus maybe Montreal from a couple of years ago were the 2 finest I have ever seen.
Now we're getting word that maybe Rutledge had a problem here.
Yeah, watch this. This is the same corner. Look, just, oh, man, that's a 57 Cadillac Whitewall right there that he put on the back wheel. And that shows how hard he continues to try. That's the same corner that Hoover Orsi crashed on yesterday. He didn't get in too early. He got in just on the power a fraction too much.
Could there be some technical damage there? We'll find out when we come back. At this moment, Orsi leads in Vancouver. We'll return in just a minute. It was cool to be Canadian when the kart cars hit Vancouver. Alex Tagliani on pole, Patrick Carpentier right beside him, an all-Canadian front row, and Carpentier says, let's make sure we don't come together at the start. So when the green flag was thrown, the 2 players' cars led the field towards turn 1. And it was a smooth sail into that corner. Tagliani leading, Carpentier second. Tracy and Junqueira came together in the first corner. Tagliani jumped out to a huge lead. His car running beautifully. His first pit stop, sensational. A smooth in, a change of 4 tires, and a full load of fuel for the young Canadian who led this race. Paul Tracy, in the middle of the pack, has a coming together with Cristiano D'Amata, and the right rear is blown because of it. That would cause problems for Tracy. He was off course with a flat tire. Cart would not restart him, and effectively the defending champion was out. As for Tagliani, he appeared en route to his first kart victory until this, a broken transmission leading up to his second pit stop. What a disappointing event for Alex Tagliani, who had dominated the race. His team watches, he sits and watches the rest of the race. What does he see? His teammate battling for fourth position is punted by Kenny Breck. A move that puts Carpentier off track and with a deflated tire. He would get back on track, but it would not be enough to score any points. As for the lead, Roberto Moreno taking over the lead from Gilles de Ferran. Moreno, a very popular winner in Vancouver, takes the checkered flag and captures just the second kart race of his career. As for Tagliani, he gets a ride home from Patrick Carpentier. A disappointing day for the players' team. Tagliani dominating the event but comes away with nothing. Moreno is the winner, passing de Ferran and taking the victory. His last win, his only win previously, coming in Cleveland a year ago. So it was a great day for Brazil. Moreno the winner. De Ferran taking over the championship lead in second. Tony Kanaan in fourth, sandwiching Michael Andretti. Not a good day, though, for the Canadians. Now, Bill, you saw the Breck-Carpentier incident. What do you think?
Well, you know, I have never believed in contact, even in NASCAR, where they have the benefit of fenders and bumpers. But for open-wheel contact, absolutely no way. I do not condone that. I would slap him with a huge fine.
An interesting race when the kart cars took to the streets of Vancouver. This is the Atlantic scene, and this is Joey Hand creeping up behind Hoover Orsi. Keep in mind, Hand is a rookie. He's never won an Atlantic event. Orsi has been the dominant man on the scene this year, but the rookie isn't giving an inch in second place.
No, he looks really strong, and I think a lot of credit right now has to go to his team, too, that they've obviously set this car up very well. Hand is driving with a lot of confidence. You can see that in how deep he's going in under braking, actually picking up a couple of car lengths every time on the real tight stuff to Hoover Orsi. So that is credit both to Joey Hand for his ability and his team for getting the setup right.
Michael Valiante sitting third. We saw David Rutledge brush the wall, and if you're going to brush the wall, you want it to be your rear tires and not your front.
Yeah, you want it to be a very soft brush, too, not a real hard bristle one. This is the kind of thing that if you brush it just a little too hard, you crack something, and then it's everybody's ultimate nightmare is that crack develops into a breakage at just the wrong place. So it can be a real nerve-wracker, and it can also take your concentration away.
Positions 1 to 4 remain the same. Orsi leading Hand, Valiante sitting third, Rutledge in fourth, but we keep in mind that Rutledge and Valiante are teammates, and Steve Cameron mentioned it. It takes time for Rutledge's tires to get warmed up. Whether or not he'll be able to make a move on his teammate is to be seen.
You know, right now it looks like Valiante has stretched a little bit of a gap that Rutledge had closed up at one point to being within a car length, but I think after that wall brushing incident, he may just have subconsciously backed off 5% or 10%, just giving himself a little comfort level to try and regain the rhythm and the momentum that he had going for him. But 1 through 4, they're spaced out pretty evenly right now.
There's Rutledge sitting in fourth. If you want to take another look at that incident, here it is.
And look how close this is to disaster. Just, oh boy, that is so light. I mean, any harder, he could have knocked the tire off the rim. He could have broken the actual bead and allowed the air to come out. So that's about as heavy as you can hit without damaging the car.
And yet, judging from the way Rutledge is driving, it doesn't appear as if there has been any damage to the rear of that car. In fact, it appears that he's actually closing ground on Michael Valiante. Let's find out if there has been a problem. Brian Till is standing by with Rick Cameron.
Rick Cameron, the crew chief for David Rutledge. Now, we noticed on the video it looks like he brushed the wall a little bit. We know he's got his head down. He feels like he needs to win today. Has he said anything about that contact?
No, he hasn't said anything at all about the contact. And and he just turned his fastest lap the lap prior to this one, and after he brushed the wall, so it doesn't seem to be any problem with the car. He just got to find a way past his teammate and chase those guys down.
Now, you left me an opening here, so I got to ask this question. You said he didn't say anything about the contact. Has he said anything about the car?
No comments about the car either, so no complaints is a good thing.
You said if you can get past your teammate, have you guys worked on a plan on that yet? I asked Steve earlier, when do you let Michael know?
Well, a lot of it, I guess, will depend if Mike is holding him up and what kind of pace Mike's running, but right now they're running about the same pace, and they're not falling back from the leader, so it don't seem to be a problem right now.
Well, you know what? That could be one of two things. That either there is no damage on the car, or being a driver, you hope your crew chief didn't see that happen, and you go, what hit? No, I didn't hit the wall, honest.
Yeah. Silence would tell us that there is nothing wrong. But maybe David's not saying. However, he is performing very well at this point, and they did address the situation involving his teammate. If Michael Valiante starts holding up Rutledge, you will probably expect a pass, but at this point it doesn't look like Valiante's slow.
No, I think they're all so well matched right now. This is a case of who will make the fewest mistakes. These guys have run about the same distance apart for long enough now that they can kind of pick out where each other's weaknesses are, where the strengths are. It might simply be a case of going through traffic. I mean, that is always a problem, and if you get one driver who doesn't look in the mirrors, the complexion of this race could change instantly.
The blue flag is out for the leaders as they come up on lap traffic. Orsi leading a train of 3. Can he hold that lead? Find out when we come back. Back in Vancouver, Hoover Orsi leading Joey Hand, but just slightly. Let's go down to the Hilton Motorsport pit and find out what's brewing with Brian Till.
Keith, you guys on the verge of your first championship, Hoover's first championship. First question is, have you taken a breath today? Has your heart slowed down at all? And, you know, when I talked to the guys, they said, we need to win today. We want it to be impressive because we're trying to get Hoover a champ car drive. Now, what's going to be more impressive to you at the end of the day, winning the race or winning the championship?
I'm pretty selfish, Brian. I want both. This team doesn't know second place. It's they're always here to win, and you know, that's instilled, and that didn't come from me. That just came from them.
Well, these guys have been at it all year long. They've never given up. You know, they've repaired cars when they've been broken, and I think Keith said it all. They want both.
If you hang around the Hilton Motorsport garage long enough, you realize very quickly it's a very professional organization.
Yeah, and I think part of the credit, too, probably has to go to their coach. I hear it's this ultra-fine young man named David Empringham or something like that.
Oh, David Empringham, the Canadian, in fact, is the instructor for Hoover Orsi, who's feeling a lot of pressure right now from Joey Hand.
Oh, and this is the best pressure of the race right now. Hand is in a great drafting position. Here he goes.
There's the move for the lead. And Hand on the inside takes over first position. What a pass.
Tremendous job. Oh, now that is exactly a case of exercising patience until you get just the right situation. Now look what it's done. Look what it's going to do to Valiante, too. When a driver follows, sees all of a sudden a crack in the armor, they have to go for it. This is a terrific opportunity. Oh, no.
Oh,
Stefan Roy.
Yeah, Stefan C. Roy is into the tire barrier there.
Oh, boy. Well, this is a course where yellow flags are almost part of the race, just a standard practice. And I think we're going to get a pace car out to try and clear that.
Well, we haven't seen a yellow so far, which is surprising on a track like this one.
Amazing.
But there is a full course yellow. That'll slow the field down and group everybody together. But your leader now is not Hoover Orsi. It is, in fact, Joey Hand, who will settle into that position and weave back and forth to keep those tires warm. Let's take another look at what happened with Stefan C. Roy as he takes a well-deserved sip from a drink of water.
That's the cart safety people just getting the car out of the way. They're going to hook up some straps to it and try and move it. Now, just watch here in the background, and we'll see. Well, he was already backwards, so I think he made us to come into that corner and either had something break. Now, again, we saw that happen earlier on. We saw an axle or a CV joint break, but more likely, just on the brakes too late, the car swapped ends.
So we have a new leader in Vancouver. Joey Hand, a rookie, looking for his first win. Welcome back to Vancouver. Jamie Campbell joined by Bill Adam for round number 10. of the Toyota Atlantic Championship. Joey Hand leads this race, having just passed Hoover Orsi for the lead. This is Martin Basso. He sits in 5th. The green flag falls, and Hand leads this event.
What a great job he did on the start, too. For the first time, Hoover Orsi could not control the start. That was Joey Hand's. He got a terrific jump. Look at Valiante right on the tail of Orsi. This is a tremendous opportunity for him, and he has to pressure him. I think also, Orsi now has to watch his mirrors very carefully. Let's see how he responds to this immediate pressure.
On board with Martin Basso, but this is the front of the pack, and Orsi, who's dominated this event, now finds himself being pressured.
Yeah, Valiante's getting very close. I don't think he's got a chance. Oh, he does. He's going for it.
Valiante on the same position that Hand took the lead.
Look at Rutledge. Oh, no. Orsi, he deliberately drove over in front of Rutledge. That was a blocking move. Absolutely. He did not want Rutledge to get by.
That's trouble for Rutledge. I think he may have suffered some damage on the front of that car.
Oh, that was amazing. That was a quick response by Orsi. You really can't blame him for doing that. He does not want to allow Rutledge to get up into a position of passing him. That would just... Oh, no.
Yep, there is definitely damage to that car, Bill.
Oh, I think he might have lost a tire. No, look at the front wing.
Wow.
His wing is all askew. Not another heartbreak.
Now, it looked as if Orsi deliberately moved over.
He did, without question. Absolutely without question, he moved over. He should have held his line under an ideal situation, but again, you've got the right to move your car anywhere on the track once. You do it twice or 3 times, they consider it blocking, but once you're allowed to actually... there's another car pulling off. That's Grant Riley. He also has suffered some sort of a mechanical problem.
Now, if you're just joining us, if you're new to Atlantic racing, Hoover Orsi is leading the championship, and in fact, David Rutledge is the only man that can challenge him for that championship at this point. It's kind of like a Michael Schumacher, Damon Hill situation here.
Boy, oh boy, here's a replay. Now, you see Valiante goes up the inside to watch this.
Wow.
Without question, you saw him make a violent, and David Hand, his hand goes up in the air, just out of frustration, saying, why did you do it? What was the reason?
Swerved right over in his path. There's no question there.
You know what? Sometimes little moves like that can either impress or anger the champ car people, so...
Let's go down to Brian Till.
Well, definitely significant damage to the nose. They're going to have to change the nose box, but don't forget, guys, it's 8 screws, 4 on either side. The championship for David is not looking good at all unless there's damage to both cars. I mean, we don't know if there's any damage to Orsi's car right now, but it certainly looks at this point in time like David Rutledge got the worst of this.
Man, I think at this point, David and the crew mount their Ben-Hur front wing with some knife blades on the end. They go out and they do payback now.
Coming into this race, Hoover Orsi had a sizable advantage over Rutledge. In fact, should Orsi score 15 points and Rutledge none, and then the championship would be won. Now, let's give credit to Orsi. He's been sensational all year, but in terms of claiming the championship, this is not a very sportsmanlike way of doing it.
Well, it isn't. On one sense, it's a very heads-up move on his part to go over and try and block his chief adversary, but on the other hand, you just don't do it. You don't risk contact. I mean, that's getting back to the kart race. You don't risk open-wheel contact because potentially you can really hurt yourself. You can really hurt someone else. How are you going to feel if you put someone into the fence and they're badly hurt? Not very good.
And ironically, Rutledge comes out, as we look at Joey Hand in the lead, Rutledge comes out of the pits just in front of Hoover Orsi. Yet, he is almost a lap down.
Man, and this...
Look at, there's Orsi right behind him. And he'll make a pass.
Total class move. No, he didn't.
No, he won't get by.
No. That's interesting. So Rutledge gave him a complete opportunity to get by, and Hoover didn't take it.
If I'm Hoover Orsi, I'm thinking about retribution at this point.
Possibly you would, you know, and that maybe is why he didn't take that opportunity, just thinking that, well, he is on the outside going into a right-hand corner, and he could end up in the wall very easily.
And you know that David Rutledge knows who's behind him.
Now, just look at this replay. You can see how far over Hoover Orsi drove to actually make that contact. Completely needless.
There's Orsi trying again on the inside. He'll have a look, but I'm not sure he's that interested in getting past David Rutledge at this point. Orsi knows he just needs to finish well, and he may secure the championship.
Now, and what David Rutledge could do, and I'm not suggesting that he would even do it. I think he's far too classy young man, but he could drive his car slowly enough at certain places that would just make it physically impossible for Hoover to get back up to the lead.
What is Rutledge's state of mind at this point?
I think a bit of anger, a bit of frustration, and the real challenge is for him to keep his head down. Oh, and now you see him. He's waving his hand. I don't agree with that. I don't think Hoover Orsi is being blocked at all.
No.
He has not tried to get by David Rutledge at any point yet.
He wants Rutledge to move over.
Yeah, well, I think maybe what he's doing is signaling for Cart to hang out a blue flag and force Rutledge to move over. He's trying to play a little bit of a mind game here. He doesn't want to take a risk in going by just in case David wants to play the retribution game. And I don't think David would. But boy, it certainly is uppermost in the mind of Hoover Orsi right now. He's being more tentative than I've ever seen him. There, right there, he had another shot. He could have easily gone down the inside. Didn't take it. Here's one more at the end of the straight. He should get a good draft. Let's see. And again, he doesn't take it. He's driving very tentatively right now.
Well, let's keep in mind that Cart will have something to say about this incident before the day is over as Orsi continues to look for space beside Rutledge. I'd be more concerned with the people of Vancouver. I'd want to get on a flight out of there quickly.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to ride your bicycle through the crowd, or I think if you do, you want to wear your helmet and a lot of Kevlar body armor, because the crowd will be furious. I mean, this is just such a needless thing to do. I mean, you're in this for racing. You're not in this for blocking, and the blocking shouldn't be part of this race, particularly, again, to go back to the open wheel contact. That flat out is dangerous. Now here's this pass. One more time, Valiante, a clean pass. He shocks Orsi. Orsi looks in his mirror, goes, ugh! Hard right turn.
Whoa.
I mean, needless. Totally needless.
A somewhat selfish and desperate move.
It is.
To move into the path of David Rutledge. This soap opera continues in just a minute. Welcome back to Vancouver and an Atlantic race filled with drama. Joey Hand, a rookie, leads at this point, but the real interesting story exists right here. This is Hoover Orsi, who has come into contact with David Rutledge, and as a result, Rutledge has fallen well behind the pace and certainly out of contention for any points.
And Hoover Orsi, too, he seemed to back just right totally off. I don't believe he's damaged his car at all because I haven't seen any signs of the car pushing or being loose in corners. I think he's just playing a waiting game right now. What does he have to lose or what does he have to win? That's all he's thinking about.
Well, the gap between Rutledge and Orsi is several car lengths at this point, and maybe that's for a reason. Should Orsi finish in his position, that would be third and gain 14 points. He also gets a point for winning the pole. And David Rutledge doesn't score any points, that would mean Orsi would clinch the championship. So maybe he's content just sitting right there.
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, and suddenly his argument goes away for Rutledge blocking him. Like, Rutledge has just pulled off and left him. And how heartbreaking. I mean, I'm sure we could hear a collective gasp go up from the crowd when that incident took place.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what the Lynx team has to say about this. Let's go down to Brian Till and find out.
You guys looked at the video and made some comments on the driving on the line, and Steve Cameron, team manager, it's up to you to make the decision as to whether you guys want to protest the driving on Orsi's part. Nobody wants to win a championship this way. Can you give us some idea of what you're thinking?
Well, it was a pretty blatant move by Orsi. You know, it's a shame that the championship comes down to somebody making a move like that. So we'll probably protest him. You know, hopefully they'll take his points away and we can have a battle the last two races and maybe do it fairly.
Incredible stuff so far. It reminds me of the Michael Schumacher-Jacques Villeneuve coming together at Jerez in 1997. And as mentioned earlier, Damon Hill lost a world title when Michael Schumacher swerved in front of him in 1994. So we've heard the Rutledge side of things. In Hilton's Motorsport Garage, they must be wondering exactly what's going to go on because Cart will probably weigh in at some point. So the thoughts of Hilton Motorsports would be valuable at this point. Here's Brian Till again.
Well, Keith Hilton, you know, with the incident between Hoover and David Rutledge, there's been some unofficial comments about reviewing tapes and protests being filed and so on and so forth. And I know that you guys would like to walk out of here with a championship today. Any thoughts?
You know, I haven't seen the tape or I haven't really seen the contact. I don't want to even speculate at this point in time. Obviously, Hoover's been clean all year, so is David, so I don't know.
Keith Hilton, understandably quiet. You know who's really enjoying this right now?
I think he's got a future in politics.
I would think so. You know who must be enjoying this is Joey Hand, the leader.
Oh, I'll bet. I mean, what a great scene it's been for him. He came so close to Cleveland, and boy, he has just disappeared into the sunset.
Joey Hand has a deal for next year, so a win here near the end of the season would perhaps vault him into the position of championship favorite when the 2002 season gets underway. At this moment, he is leading the race in Vancouver and has never won an Atlantic event. So, boy, what a time to score his first victory.
Perfect time for him. And I mean, and what a way to do it too. How he just set Orsi up, made that picture-perfect pass. So all the credit in the world to both, again, Joey and the crew. I mean, this is a team that really is working well today.
Yeah, winning is enjoyable, but you really like to do it when you actually make a pass for the lead as opposed to assuming the lead.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, the value of a win is so much more valuable. Sometimes, even finishing 5th, like what these fellows are doing right here, having a terrific battle and beating somebody for that 5th place is better than a win when you don't have to work for the win. It's just much more gratifying.
Rodolfo Lavin is the man who hangs on to 5th position. Case Montgomery sitting behind him. This the battle for 5th position.
Well, Case Montgomery, we've seen him do so well over the past years at Long Beach in California, and he likes that track. He likes the style of racing through the streets with all the concrete barriers, and it's something that doesn't faze him. And even though he doesn't drive the Toyota Atlantic cars very much anymore, he's still very quick today.
He's a former winner on this circuit. There's a man who's looking at perhaps his first win. Michael Valiante sitting in 2nd. A word from Joey Hand's pit. Here's Brian Till.
Rogers, you and the DSTP team have a way of bringing young drivers along. You got Buddy Rice a championship last year, and it looks like you may deliver Joey Hand his first win.
We're very excited. We worked hard all year for this. We've had a little bit of bad luck, but Joey's an outstanding driver. We look forward to having him next year.
And Joey Hand almost won in Cleveland earlier this year after a last lap battle with Hoover Orsi. It doesn't appear as if he'll be challenged at the end of this race. However, technical problems can always sneak in.
I was just going to say, don't put the kiss of death on him right now, because, again, these tracks are so hard on axles and CV joints, and you just never know. But he is driving really smoothly. You don't see him bouncing off the curbs or doing anything like that. So Joey Hand was so impressive at Cleveland. I think today will go a long way for making up for that disappointment. I mean, he definitely would have finished Cleveland on a high note. When you get right down to it, the last lap, you're leading your second, you can't help but finish high. 1 lap to go for him, so he can almost taste it. Tonight, boy, are these guys going to have a celebration if this car just hangs on for another 2 miles.
And look, who should benefit from any technical problems that Hand might have? Michael Valiante, who's comfortable in 2nd position, not being challenged by Orsi, and he's a BC native. So a good story either way coming towards the finish line. And I think Valiante is just content to sit there and gather the points in 2nd place.
Definitely, and what a great race for him. He has shown so much promise this year, and that's got to be exciting both for himself and for the team next year, thinking that, well, he's got a season under his belt. He can go into it, really take a run at it.
Joey Hand is a rookie. His car owner looks on. She knows what is in store for this young man. That would be a checkered flag. He almost scored it at Cleveland earlier this year, but a desperate move at the end by Hoover Orsi took a victory away from Joey Hand. Victory appears to be within grasp right now in Vancouver.
That's right. Get the champagne ready, because that cork is going to pop, Joey. Oh, no!
Bob Siska near the end, slamming the wall.
Oh, the last lap.
Big damage to the back of that car. And there is the checkered flag. Joey Hand captures his first Formula Atlantic race. What a victory, passing Hoover Orsi and taking the victory. We'll talk to the winner when we come back. Welcome back to Vancouver. A bizarre race as Joey Hand, the rookie from Sacramento, California, takes the victory. Hoover Orsi in 3rd place, but he had a coming together with David Rutledge, who finishes well back in 9th. The happy winner is Joey Hand. He's down trackside.
Joey Hand, I know that you've been waiting a long time for this, and a lot of help from the DSTP team and a past champion, Buddy Rice. Congratulations.
Thanks a lot. I mean, this is what this team deserves. This DSTP team is a winning team, and I'm just glad I could do it for them finally. You know, we had a long struggle all year long, and we finally picked one up, and this is exactly what we wanted to do to finish the year out. I think we can pick up a couple more if everything goes well.
A lot of positive thoughts here on the DSTP team. They're looking for a lot of momentum going into next year, guys.
Taking a look at the point situation, at this moment, Hoover Orsi is the series champion, but these are unofficial results. CART will review the incident.
Well, David, I don't think frustration is probably a good enough word. It looks like you had a pretty good race car today. Little incident with Hoover out on the racetrack. Can you tell us what happened?
Yeah, Michael made a passing attempt on Hoover, and obviously during a passing attempt, both cars lose momentum, and I was set up to take advantage of Hoover's momentum loss, and unfortunately he came right across the track, and I had nowhere to go. So it's fairly disappointing, and given the circumstances with points and everything, it almost seems obvious, but you know, we had a great race car, especially over the long runs, as we proved even with a bent toe link after we replaced the front wing. The car was really hooked up, and it's just unfortunate we couldn't race properly out there today.
Well, remarks from a nice young professional. You heard him say, it almost seems obvious, guys. He wasn't willing to go all the way, but you know how he feels.
David Rutledge somewhat restrained as we go to round 11 at the Houston Grand Prix. That should be an interesting situation as this soap opera carries over. At this moment, though, pending a decision from CART, Hoover Orsi is the Atlantic champion. The winner in Vancouver, Joey Hand. For Bill Adam, I'm Jamie Campbell. Thanks for joining us.